There are so many memorable NBA teams that never won an NBA championship. The teams that win an NBA title have their names etched in stone and will always be remembered, and rightfully so. But there are also teams that fall short of their ultimate goals, but they never fell short of being entertaining, unforgettable, and brilliant on the basketball court. You can even make the argument that some of these teams are more memorable than the teams that won a championship. A while ago, I started my list on the most memorable NBA teams to never win a championship since 1995. I started with number 15 and I left off at number 4. It's been a long time since I did a video on this subject, but I'm back to finish the top 3. If you haven't watched all my videos on this list, please check out the rest on my channel, and the playlist will be in the description and will also be shown on the screen at the end of the video. The countdown continues. At number 3, the 2004-05 Phoenix Suns. This could be the team that turned the NBA into what you see today. Free-flowing, fast-paced basketball. This is the team and organization that had the guts to zig when everybody zagged. They started the trend of playing small in the NBA. You have to remember, this style and pace was very unpopular. People around the league thought this style wasn't sustainable and the small lineup would get killed and wouldn't hold up. Ever since winning 62 games and reaching the NBA Finals in 1993 with Charles Barkley, the Suns have always had a competitive team with a good point guard. From Kevin Johnson to Jason Kidd to Stephon Marbury. But it was another point guard that the Suns decided to let go at one point that got the franchise back to being one of the best teams in the league. It's very rare for a franchise that gives up on a player with great potential and to be able to correct the mistake they made. From 1988 to 2001, the Phoenix Suns made the playoffs 13 years in a row. This franchise was a model of consistency in the 90s. This organization made some vital draft picks that helped form the NBA's most popular style of offense in the mid-2000s. The first important pick was in the 1999 NBA draft, where they selected the combo forward out of UNLV, Sean Marion, with the 9th overall pick. He became a staple of their success over the next decade. Marion had a crazy motor, he was highly versatile, super energetic, and an athletic freak. A player who could lock down a score on one end and somebody you didn't have to run plays for. But at the end of the day, he would end up with around 20 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block, and shot 50% from the field. Playing a typical small forward at the power forward position is so common these days, but back in the 2000s, it was unheard of. To be able to succeed at that position at the time, you had to have toughness and grit, 2 things that was part of Marion's makeup as a player. To go along with that, he had the athleticism, length, and quickness to be a nightmare matchup for the opposing team to guard. You couldn't keep him off the boards, and he could guard 4 positions, and he would generally guard the other team's best player on any given night. And he also had one of the best nicknames in the 21st century, the Matrix, given to him by Kenny Smith. Mike D'Antoni needed that versatility for his system to work. Another key draft pick for the Suns was in 2002. Just like with Marion, they did not need a top 5 pick to get one of the best players in the draft. Jerry Colangelo was the owner at the time, and his son Bryant was part of the Suns front office, and Jerry wasn't the type of guy that wanted to draft a high school kid. But Amare's performance in the McDonald's All-American game really stood out, and he played like a man amongst boys. Amare didn't act like the typical high school kid. His makeup and personality was different, and he also had a star appeal about him. The Suns front office had to bring him in for a workout. The 19-year-old already had the frame and skill set to play against the best in the world. Everybody at the workout knew that Amare was the real deal. The Suns wanted Stoudemire, and Stoudemire wanted to be with the Suns. Jerry Colangelo knew Amare's agent and was a good friend of his. And Jerry convinced him not to let Amare work out with any other team that would draft him before the Suns. The Clippers had the 8th pick, 1 pick in front of the Suns. And they had a conversation with the Suns front office about Amare. The Clippers knew the Suns had a connection with Amare, and they had a sense that the Suns knew something about him that nobody else did. But instead of making the obvious selection at number 8, the Clippers decided to draft Chris Wilcox. You couldn't expect nothing less from the Clippers organization at the time. That disaster for the Clippers was a miracle for the Suns.
With the 9th pick in the 2002 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Amare Stoudemire from Cypress Creek High School in Orlando, Florida.
Jerry Colangelo called the Clippers bluff and didn't flinch. This high school kid didn't waste no time proving that he was going to be a force to be reckoned with. Stoudemire brought fear to anybody that wanted to challenge him at the rim. Even at a young age, he was a grown man, and he was out for blood early in his career. In his rookie year, he played all 82 games and averaged around 13 points, 9 rebounds, and a block a game, and was named Rookie of the Year. The Suns had a young and up-and-coming team that was led by Marbury, Stoudemire, and Marion. After missing the playoffs the previous year, the 2002-03 Suns returned to the playoffs as an 8th seed. They had a matchup in the first round against Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and the San Antonio Spurs. And Marbury and the Suns shocked the Spurs in Game 1 with a 3-pointer at the buzzer to steal a victory against the number 1 seed. But that was the only win they could get in the series, but it was a nice step forward for this young team. Not only did they have Marbury, Marion, and Stoudemire, they also had a young Joe Johnson, who was acquired in a trade with the Celtics in February of 2002 during his rookie year. He was a guy who came into his own with this franchise. He had a calm demeanor, was a versatile offensive player, and can also play D on the other end. He was a supreme two-way player like Marion was. Before he was ISO Joe and a multiple-time All-Star, he was the ultimate role player for the Suns. The Suns had high expectations going into the 2003-04 season and were looking to build off a promising season the previous year. 3 weeks before the season started, they signed Marbury to a 4-year extension that will end up paying him $105 million over the next 6 years. But the team got off to a bad start. The confidence they had in their current point guard Marbury changed in the blink of an eye. The Suns fired head coach Frank Johnson after 21 games, and Mike D'Antoni was the new man in charge. He was chomping at the bit to be able to run the style he wanted. His offensive philosophy was developed while playing in Italy, where he became a star after his NBA playing career. He had a vision, but he knew Marbury wasn't the type of point guard that could run his offense the way he wanted. Offloading Marbury in his contract wasn't going to be easy. You had to find another team that was desperate enough to take him, an incompetent franchise. Enter Isaiah Thomas and the New York Knicks. The Suns were able to reinvent themselves with help from the lowly New York Knicks. They were willing to take Marbury and Penny Hardaway's contract that ended up clearing around $25 million of cap space for the next summer. This franchise change and trade set up an opportunity for the Suns to get a game changer in free agency. Kobe Bryant was a free agent in the summer of 2004, but the Suns knew he was an unrealistic target for them, so they focused on another big-time free agent.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. This is a terrific turnout, and I think that when the floodgates of free agency opened up on July 1, we had one specific goal and one specific purpose.
Steve Nash was the perfect player to run Mike D'Antoni's system. They had drafted Nash 15th overall in 1996, while they still had great point guards in Jason Kidd and Kevin Johnson. Even though Nash showed glimpses throughout his early days that he could be special in the league, he didn't get the playing time he needed to develop into a better player, and the Suns still loved Jason Kidd at the time. So the Suns ended up trading Nash to Dallas, where he was able to become a multiple-time All-Star. In return, the biggest piece of the trade that the Suns got back was a first-round pick. A first-round pick that ended up being Shawn Marion, the Matrix. The Mavericks' reluctance to give Steve Nash the contract he deserved allowed the Suns to bring him back to the franchise that gave him his first chance in the NBA. Without the Knicks, the Suns don't have the cap space to sign a game-changing free agent. Without the Nash trade in '98, the Suns don't get a chance to draft a versatile Shawn Marion. And without the Mavericks being cheap, the Suns don't get a chance to sign a future league MVP. Everything seemed to fall in place for the 2004-05 Phoenix Suns. Steve Nash gave Mike D'Antoni the engine to his offense. He emphasized the up-tempo offense that relied on a heavy dose of pick and rolls and three-pointers while playing smaller lineups. This offense was one of the most memorable offenses of all time. They called it 7 seconds or less. This team changed the course for the franchise into a winning era and helped move the NBA towards an open floor, fast-paced, quick-shooting, small ball attack. that is prevalent in the game today. It was a fresh blend of entertainment and innovation. The Suns were a high-scoring juggernaut that wanted to score as quickly as possible. It didn't matter if the opposing team missed a shot or made a shot. The Suns got the ball up the court regardless. Nobody knew how good the Suns would be that year. Not even the players. Not even Steve Nash. Making the back end of the playoffs was the initial goal for the team. This team was coming off a 29-53 record, and the Suns missed the playoffs for just the second time in 2 decades. Questions remain on how much a player like Steve Nash could turn around a struggling basketball team. Nash wasn't the only key free agent they picked up that summer. They used the remainder of their cap space and signed Quentin Richardson to a 6-year, $48 million contract. Instead of deciding who to start between Richardson and Joe Johnson, D'Antoni started both. Instead of having Stoudemire play the 4 spot, D'Antoni slid him down to the 5 and also slid Marion down to the 4. The lineup was set, and the optimism grew in training camp and preseason. D'Antoni and Nash were the right combination, and the Suns were ready to set the league on fire. The league wasn't going to know what hit them. Opposing teams didn't know why the Suns were playing so much faster than everybody else. The Suns went 7-1 in preseason, and everyone in the organization saw the possibilities for a special season. There was even a preseason game where the Suns scored 100 points in the third quarter, which was unheard of at the time. They started the season off hot with a 13-2 record, their best start since 1980. This team looked like they've been playing together for years. The chemistry with this team was great off the court, and it definitely translated on the court. Steve Nash had a unique blend of unselfishness and pinpoint passing that had most of his teammates off to career years. Quentin Richardson was the best three-point shooter on the team. Joe Johnson had career highs at the time in points and rebounds, and also was the backup point guard. Sean Marion was changing the game at power forward and being reliable on both ends. And Amare Stoudemire at times looked like one of the best big men in the league. Nash was dropping dimes better than anybody in the league. It was clear around the 30-game mark that this team was not just a playoff team, but could possibly be one of the best teams in the league. At just 22 years old, Stoudemire had the game of his career against the Trailblazers.
More deflected by Stoudemire. Stoudemire continues up the floor. With 42 big ones. Oh, no. Oh, no! I don't believe it. Here he goes. Look at the crowd. They're on their feet. Yes! 50 points.
He racked up a career-high 50 points while also pulling down 11 boards. At the time, he became the 6th youngest player to reach the 50-point plateau in NBA history. The Suns had 3 players make the All-Star team in Nash, Marion, and Stoudemire. And Joe Johnson and Quentin Richardson were invited to the three-point shootout, and Richardson became the first player in franchise history to win that event. The team didn't slow down a bit in the second half of the season. They continued to wreak havoc on the league, but experts still question, could this style of play win in the playoffs? Their offense helped them have the 3rd biggest turnaround in league history, improving from the previous year by 33 games. They had the league's highest scoring average at 100 points, which was the highest in a decade. They finished with a record of 62-20, which was the best in the league and tied a franchise record. Both the head coach and the best player took home 2 major awards that year. Mike D'Antoni was named Coach of the Year in what was his first full season with the team. And the best player, Steve Nash, took home the league MVP. I know a lot of people felt that Nash did not have the numbers to rightfully win the league MVP. But regardless, there was no doubt that Nash was one of the most valuable players in the league that year. Nash made everything work for this team. Nash posted the NBA's highest assist average since John Stockton in 1995, and was the only player in the league to average double digits in assists. After sweeping the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round, the Suns matched up with the Dallas Mavericks, the team that didn't believe Steve Nash was worth the money he was demanding in free agency. This was a chance for Steve Nash to prove to his former team why they made a mistake. This was an excellent series between 2 great teams. They went blow for blow, hitting big shot after big shot. But in a moment that proved very costly for the Suns down the road, in Game 2, Joe Johnson suffered a face fracture, and he will end up missing the rest of that series. After 4 games, each team had 2 wins. In Game 4, Steve Nash had a career-high 48 points as he took over offensively for the Suns. But the team still lost 119-109. But back in Phoenix for Game 5, Where he received the MVP trophy in front of his fans, Nash proved on that night why he was the most valuable player by leading the Suns to victory, as he finished with a triple-double, scoring 34 points, grabbing 13 rebounds, and having 12 assists. Stoudemire played like an MVP just as much as Nash did in that series, scoring 40 points, 30 points, and 37 in his first 3 games. With the Suns up 3-2 going into Dallas for Game 6, the Mavericks got off to a hot start, leading at one point by 16 points in the second half. The Suns looked to their MVP to close the deal. After cutting the lead to 5 points with less than 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Nash scored 8 points in the final minutes as they celebrated a win in Game 6, and the Suns advanced to the Western Conference Finals. They couldn't celebrate too much as they had a date with the San Antonio Spurs in less than 40 hours. The absence of a player like Joe Johnson was so devastating for the number 1 seeded Suns. The Spurs showed why they were battle-tested and proved they could get defensive stops when they needed to. Amare Stoudemire had his coming-out party against Tim Duncan. Remember, this was pre-injury Amare Stoudemire. This was before he had microfracture surgery that took away some of his athleticism. But despite Amare averaging 37 points in the first 3 games, the Suns fell down 0-3 and was on the verge of being swept. Game 4 was a must-win for the Suns, and they were able to win that game, and it was sealed by a key defensive play by Stoudemire on Tim Duncan. But that was the only win they would get in that series. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan were just too much to handle. They had too much experience, and they closed the series out in 5 games. D'Antoni and Steve Nash helped the Suns win a lot of games from 2004 to 2010. They had their fair share of bad luck that kept them from ever reaching the NBA Finals. Not re-signing Joe Johnson prior to the 2004-05 season and allowing him to leave in a sign and trade to Atlanta was a huge missed opportunity. You had a guy in Joe Johnson who was still young at the time, who could get his own shot, play defense, and play backup point guard at 6'8". I believe with Joe Johnson on the team, the 2004-05 Phoenix Suns was the most talented Suns team in the Nash era. In the 2007 semifinals against the Spurs, the Suns were in position to finally get past their arch nemesis, but not being able to stop the bleeding of Steve Nash's nose kept him out of key moments late in the fourth quarter of Game 1, and the Suns ended up losing that game. And in that same series, the Suns were headed to a victory in Game 4, and out of nowhere, Robert Orr gave Nash a hip check at the end of the game. And Stoudemire and Boris Diaw were suspended for 1 game for leaving the vicinity of the bench during the altercation. And that ultimately doomed the Suns in that series, as many felt they had the better team that year.